Have you ever wondered how the world would be if every government was strict to the point of repression? This is a daunting question that could potentially leave you feeling uneasy, and yet it accurately depicts the daily reality that countless individuals around the world face. Today, we're embarking on a thought-provoking journey, a journey that will lead us across various continents, traverse multiple time zones, and delve into the core of some of the strictest governments that exist. Our mission will be to investigate not just the rigid structures and policies of these governments, but to also shed light on the profound, often life-altering impact they exert on the lives of the people who live under their iron-fisted rule. But before we dive into the deep end, it's essential first to clarify, what do we intend when we refer to strict government? In its most fundamental sense, a strict government is one that wields sweeping control over the lives of its citizens. This command can manifest in a myriad of forms, such as the imposition of rigorous laws, widespread censorship, and significantly limited civil. There are common characteristics that you'll often find in such governments: a concentration of power in the hands of a select few, curtailed freedom of speech, and a pronounced emphasis on preserving order and stability, often at the cost of individual rights and freedoms. As we embark on this exploration, we'll be zooming our focus on 4 countries, each displaying its unique interpretation of authority. We'll begin visiting North Korea, which is frequently dubbed as the world's most secretive state. Here, the government's hold on its citizens' lives is nearly all-encompassing. After our North Korean sojourn, we'll make our way to Saudi Arabia. Here we'll see how the government's uncompromising rule is shaped by enduring traditional practices and deeply rooted religious beliefs. Then we'll journey to Singapore, a country that has garnered a reputation for its strict laws and regulations. However, Singapore also stands as a beacon of success, presenting a fascinating paradox that's worth exploring. Our final destination will be Eritrea, an African nation wrestling with the challenges that accompany a tightly controlled society. Of these countries provides a unique viewpoint on the authorities' power, unraveling the complexities and paradoxes that are inherently woven into the fabric of strict governance. As we traverse through the landscapes of these countries, we'll encounter stories of individuals who bear the brunt of these strict rules. We'll listen to tales of their struggles and triumphs, their hopes and fears, their dreams and their reality. Each of these narratives will offer us a deeper understanding of the human cost of such stringent governance. We'll also delve into the historical contexts that have shaped these strict governments. How have historical events and cultural contexts influenced their policies? How have they evolved over the years? What lessons can we learn from their successes and failures? Moreover, we'll explore how these governments interact with the international community. What role do they play on the global stage? How do their policies affect their relationships with other countries? What kind of future do they envisage for themselves and their citizens? This exploration is intended to serve as a window into these strict governments and their impact on people's lives. It's not just about the politics or the power dynamics, but understanding the human lives at the heart of these complexities. It's about fostering empathy and encouraging critical thinking about the world we live in. So prepare yourself. It's going to be a riveting ride filled with learning, reflections, and plenty of surprises. As we journey together into the heart of the world's strictest governments, we hope to open your eyes to new perspectives and spark a curiosity to understand more. We want to challenge your assumptions, break down stereotypes, and foster a more nuanced understanding of the world around us. Stay tuned as we journey into the heart of some of the world's strictest governments. First stop on our global tour, North Korea, the Hermit Kingdom. Often shrouded in mystery and notorious for its strict regime, North Korea has always been a topic of intense global scrutiny and intrigue. We aim to decode the enigma that is North Korea and shed light on the major aspects of state control, governance, and purported human rights violations. North Korea, officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is unique in its political structure. It is often dubbed a Stalinist dictatorship, a label that succinctly encapsulates its totalitarian regime. The country is helmed by Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, who follows in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, thereby cementing the dynastic rule. This continuity in leadership is a stark testament to the absolute power that the country's leadership maintains. The North Korean government comprises three significant entities: the Korean Workers' Party, the military, and the cabinet. The Workers' Party, the foremost political force, shapes the nation's policies and direction. The military, given the country's militaristic governance and focus on national security, wields considerable influence. The cabinet, while appearing as a standard component of any government in North Korea, mainly acts as an executor of the decisions made by the party and the supreme leader. One of the defining features of North Korea's regime is its absolute control over media and information dissemination. The country does not entertain independent media outlets. Every newspaper, radio station, or television channel serves as a conduit for state propaganda and glorification of the supreme leader. The internet, as the rest of the world knows, is virtually non-existent for the average North Korean. They have access to a state-monitored intranet where content is heavily regulated. This level of control extends to the education system as well, where the curriculum is meticulously designed to instill loyalty to the regime. From a tender age, children are taught to revere their leaders in a manner akin to religious devotion. This intent significantly shapes the citizens' worldview and their perception of their leaders and country's global standing. Under such stringent regulation, expressions of dissent are almost unheard of in North Korea. The concept of individual freedom is alien to its citizens, giving rise to a society that is largely compliant and subservient to the state's commands. This brings us to the issue of human rights in North Korea. Numerous international organizations, including the United Nations, have repeatedly accused the country of severe human rights violations. These accusations span a wide range of offenses, from political repression, collective punishment, and restriction of freedom of movement, to forced labor and public executions. North Korean prisons, often referred to as kwanliso, are notorious for their harsh conditions. Prisoners, including those incarcerated for political reasons, are subjected to forced labor and physical abuse. The regime reportedly also practices guilt by association, punishing relatives of those accused of severe crimes. However, it is crucial to remember that the information we have about North Korea is far from complete. The country's isolation and stringent control over information means that much remains unknown. While we should seriously consider the testimonies of defectors and reports from human rights organizations, we must also acknowledge the limitations in our understanding of this enigmatic nation. North Korea, in many ways, represents an extreme in the spectrum of government control. It serves as a stark reminder of the extent to which a state can go to control its citizens, and the profound influence this can have on their lives. But the narrative of stringent governments is not confined to North Korea alone. As we delve further into our global tour, we will come across various countries navigating the delicate balance between maintaining order and upholding individual rights. As we continue our global tour, we'll see how different countries navigate the delicate balance between maintaining order and respecting individual freedoms. From the Far East, we now turn our attention to the Middle East and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Saudi, a realm renowned for its vast deserts, towering architectural marvels, and the world's largest oil reserves, adheres to a system of monarchy. Monarchy essentially is a form of government where a single family wields power, passing it down from one generation to the next. The man who sits on the throne presently is King Salman. He assumed the throne in the January of 2015, following the demise of his half-brother, King Abdullah. The king, in conjunction with his chosen crown prince, holds absolute reign over the nation. The monarchy system in Saudi Arabia is unique in comparison to other monarchies around the world. The king not only serves as the head of state, but also holds the title of the prime minister, giving him full control over the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the government. This absolute power is maintained through strict laws and regulations, many of which are influenced by the state religion, Islam. In Saudi Arabia, Islam is not just a religion, It is the way of life. The country adheres to a strict version of Sunni Islam known as Wahhabism. The religious influence on governance is pervasive and extends to all aspects of life. The Quran and the Sunnah, the teachings and practices of the Prophet Muhammad, serve as the country's constitution. The legal system is based on Sharia Islamic law, which dictates everything from criminal justice to personal conduct. Now let's delve deeper into the issue of human rights in Saudi Arabia, a topic that often incites international scrutiny. Detractors argue that the country's stringent interpretation of Sharia law leads to infringements of human rights. Women's rights in particular have been a focal point of international critique. For decades, women in Saudi Arabia lived under one of the world's strictest gender segregation systems. They were not able to drive, travel, or work without the permission of a male guardian. However, in recent years, the kingdom has initiated some reforms under the Vision 2030 plan led by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Women can now drive and attend public events, and the male guardianship system has been eased. Despite these notable reforms, concerns about human rights persist. Particularly troubling is the government's intolerance for dissent. Activists, journalists, and anyone construed as a threat to the regime can face imprisonment, torture, and even execution. The case of Jamal Khashoggi, a Saudi journalist who was assassinated in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, serves as a grim reminder of the potential risks faced by those who dare to voice dissent. Drawing parallels and contrasts with North Korea, we find that both countries are ruled by a single leader who wields absolute power. The leaders maintain control through laws and regulations that brook no dissent, and dissenters are dealt with harshly. However, the similarities end there. Unlike North Korea, Saudi Arabia is deeply intertwined with the global economy, primarily because of its oil reserves. It has diplomatic relations with many countries and is a significant player in Middle East politics. Islam, the state religion, plays a critical role in Saudi governance, a stark contrast to North Korea's atheistic regime. In terms of human rights, both countries have been criticized for their repressive regimes. However, Saudi Arabia has shown signs of openness to reform, particularly in the area of women's rights. North Korea, on the other hand, remains isolated and to change. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia, with its monarchy system, religious influence on governance, and controversial human rights situation, presents a unique case of strict government control. Its approach to governance is deeply rooted in its religious beliefs and cultural traditions, making it a complex and engrossing case study. Saudi Arabia, while different in many ways from North Korea, shares the common thread of stringent government control. Let's now take a look at Singapore, a beacon of economic success under a strict government. The island city-state of Singapore is an economic powerhouse, punching well above its weight on the global stage. But the road to this prosperity has been paved with stringent laws, strict governance, and an unyielding emphasis on discipline. Singapore is a parliamentary republic with a Westminster system of unicameral parliamentary government. While elections are free and competitive, the People's Action Party, or PAP, has held power continuously since independence, leading to its classification as a dominant party system. It's not unusual for outside observers to view this as an authoritarian regime, but it's worth noting that the PAP's dominance is largely due to its popularity and the electorate's confidence in its ability to govern effectively. The government has a reputation for its rigorous law enforcement, which has been instrumental in maintaining Singapore's famously low crime rates. The state's zero-tolerance approach to corruption is globally renowned. The tough stance on crime and corruption has been a cornerstone of its governance, contributing to Singapore's reputation as one of the world's safest cities. One could argue that the strict laws and regulations have played a significant role in Singapore's rapid economic growth. Since its independence in the mid-20th century, Singapore has transformed from a small port city into a bustling global hub of commerce, finance, and transportation. This transformation was no accident. It was the result of deliberate strategic planning by the government. The state played an active role in fostering economic development, investing heavily in education, infrastructure, and technology. It also implemented policies to attract foreign investment, positioning Singapore as a gateway to the fast-growing Asia-Pacific region. Yet it's not all rosy. The government's stringent laws extend beyond crime and corruption, penetrating deep into social and civil liberties. Singapore has been criticized for its restrictions on freedom of speech, assembly, and association. Press freedom is also a concern, with the government maintaining a significant influence over media outlets. The contrast between Singapore's approach to governance and those of North Korea and Saudi Arabia is stark. While North Korea is a totalitarian state with absolute power vested in the leader, and Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy with power concentrated in the hands of the royal family, Singapore operates within the framework of a parliamentary republic. Despite its strict laws and regulations, it maintains a level of political stability and economic prosperity that is enviable by most standards. In North Korea and Saudi Arabia, the lack of political freedom and civil liberties often comes with economic hardship and social unrest. In contrast, Singapore's strict governance has been associated with economic prosperity and social harmony. This is not to say that the Singaporean model is without its flaws or that it's universally applicable. Each country's historical, cultural, and social contexts play a significant role in shaping its governance structure. Economic success in Singapore has been achieved through a combination of factors, including its strategic location, a highly educated workforce, a robust legal system, and an efficient government bureaucracy. However, the role of the government and its strict laws cannot be overlooked. Singapore's model of governance is unique. It straddles the line between democracy and authoritarianism, combining political stability, economic prosperity, and social harmony with a high degree of control and discipline. This balance has been key to Singapore's success, attracting both admiration and criticism. As we continue to explore the world's strict governments, it's important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to governance. Each country has its own unique set of circumstances and challenges, and what works for one may not necessarily work for another. Singapore's model of strict governance, while controversial, has undeniably yielded economic success. The city-state serves as a potent reminder that the relationship between governance, economic development, and social harmony is complex and multifaceted. It's a delicate balancing act, and Singapore's experience shows that discipline, order, and a strong government hand can, under the right circumstances, contribute to a prosperous and stable society. Our next stop takes us to Africa, to the small but significant nation of Eritrea. Eritrea, a country in the Horn of Africa, is a nation with a rich and complex history. It's a land where ancient cultures have left indelible marks, and where modern struggles and triumphs continue to shape its identity. But like many nations, Eritrea's story is also one of governance and power. Eritrea has been under a single-party state since it gained independence from Ethiopia in the early 90s. The People's Front for Democracy and Justice, or PFDJ, has been the ruling party, with President Isaias Afwerki at its helm since the inception of the nation. This is a government that fits our definition of strict, and in some ways, it parallels the systems we've seen in North Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore. Yet as we delve into the Eritrean experience, we'll see that every nation's story is unique. Human rights in Eritrea have been a matter of international concern. The United Nations has repeatedly cited the nation for various human rights abuses, including arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances, and lack of freedom of speech and assembly. It's a situation that starkly contrasts with the rigid order of Singapore or the societal control we see in Saudi Arabia. In Eritrea, the strictness of governance manifests as an absence of certain liberties we might take for granted, and the impact of this on its citizens is profound. The Eritrean government's mandatory and indefinite national service program has been particularly contentious. Officially, it's an 18-month commitment for citizens aged between 18 and 50, encompassing military training and civil service. However, reports suggest that this period can be extended indefinitely, leading to what some have termed as a form of modern-day slavery. This, combined with a lack of political freedom and economic opportunity, has led many Eritreans to flee their homeland despite the significant risks involved. So how does Eritrea compare to North Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore? Each of these nations has a distinct form of strict governance, shaped by their unique histories, cultures, and geopolitical contexts. In North Korea, strict governance is characterized by an all-encompassing state control, from economy to education to information. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, exercises strict governance through a blend of religious, royal, and political authority, maintaining tight control over societal norms and behaviors. Singapore's strict governance, meanwhile, is a model of disciplined efficiency, where rules are enforced to maintain order, cleanliness, and harmony. Eritrea's strict governance, by contrast, is marked by a strong military presence, severe restrictions on civil liberties, and a single-party political system. While it shares elements with the other nations, the concentration of power, the restriction of freedoms, its execution and impacts are distinctly its own. But it's important to remember that strict governance isn't the entirety of Eritrea's story. This is a nation with a vibrant culture, a deep history, and a people known for their resilience and resourcefulness. Eritrean music, with its unique blend of indigenous and international influences, is a testament to this spirit. And despite the challenges, Eritreans continue to find ways to express themselves, to connect with each other, and to shape their nation's future. Eritrea presents yet another face of strict governance, highlighting the diversity of this global phenomenon. It's a reminder that governance, in all its forms, is a complex and multifaceted issue. The ways in which power is wielded and the impacts it has on the people are shaped by a myriad of factors, many of which are deeply rooted in the nation's history and culture. It's a conversation that goes beyond the political, touching on aspects of humanity, dignity, and the ceaseless quest for a better life. Having explored these 4 countries, let's now take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Our journey through the corridors of power has taken us across continents and through the looking glass of some of the world's strictest governments. We've seen how power manifests itself in different cultures, climates, and contexts. Whether it's the iron fist of North Korea, the royal decrees of Saudi Arabia, the stringent laws of Singapore, or the tight grip of Eritrea. Each of these countries presents a unique perspective on authority and governance. In North Korea, we saw a society under the rule of a single party, where the state controls every aspect of life. The government's firm grip on power is maintained through a combination of political indoctrination, surveillance, and the threat of punishment. This has resulted in a society where freedom of thought and expression are severely restricted. Then we move to Saudi Arabia, a monarchy where the royal family holds ultimate power. The king's word is law, and the country's strict interpretation of Islamic law shapes every facet of life. While this has resulted in a society with a strong sense of order and tradition, it has also led to criticisms regarding human rights and gender equality. Our journey then took us to the island city-state of Singapore, where we saw a different kind of strict governance. Here, strict rules and heavy fines are used to maintain order and cleanliness. While this has led to a high standard of living and a reputation as one of the world's safest cities, it has also raised questions about personal freedoms and the right to dissent. Finally, we turned our gaze towards Eritrea, a country where the government exercises a high degree of control over its citizens. With mandatory military service, restrictions on the press, and limited political freedoms, life in Eritrea is tightly regulated. This has led to a large number of Eritreans fleeing the country in search of better opportunities elsewhere. What do these 4 countries have in common? They all demonstrate the power and influence of government. They all show how a strict government can shape a nation's identity, culture, and development. But they also highlight the challenges that come with such authority: the infringement on personal freedoms, the stifling of dissent, and the potential for human rights abuses. However, strict governance is not without its benefits. In each of these countries, we've seen a certain level of stability, order, and control that may not be present in more liberal societies. Whether it's the low crime rate in Singapore, the strong sense of cultural identity in Saudi Arabia, the discipline instilled in North Korean society, or the unity forged in Eritrea, These are all outcomes of their respective forms of strict governance. Yet, the impacts of these governments extend beyond their own borders. Their policies and actions have ripple effects that touch the global community. Whether it's through international relations, trade, or human rights issues, these countries shape the world in ways that go beyond their geographic size or population. As we reflect on what we've learned, it's clear that governance is a complex and multifaceted concept. It's not simply about who holds power, but how that power is used, how it affects the people under its sway, and how it interacts with the wider world. Strict governance, as we've seen, can take many forms and have diverse impacts. Each country we've explored offers a unique lens through which to view this concept, and it's through understanding these nuances that we can better appreciate the role of government in shaping our world. As we wrap up our tour of strict governments around the world, it's clear that this is a complex and multifaceted issue. It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? We've explored the corridors of power from North Korea in the Far East to Eritrea in the Horn of Africa. We've seen how authority can be wielded with an iron fist, and how it can, seemingly paradoxically, coexist with prosperity, as in the case of Singapore. In North Korea, we've seen a government that exercises absolute control over its citizens' lives, from their jobs to their hairstyles. It's a place where dissent is not merely discouraged, but punished severely. Moving to the Middle East, we delved into the intricacies of Saudi Arabia's monarchy, a realm where religious laws and societal norms tightly dictate daily life, and where modernization efforts are slowly but surely challenging the status quo. Then to the vibrant city-state of Singapore, where strict laws and regulations have played a significant role in its transformation from a struggling nation to a global economic powerhouse, a testament to the fact that strict doesn't always equate to oppressive. And finally to Eritrea, a country where the government's grip on power is as tight as any, with enforced national service and restricted freedoms being the order of the day. Every one of these governments, strict as they may be, are unique. Each has its own particular set of circumstances, its own history, its own culture. They serve as a reminder that the world is a complex place and that governance is not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. We encourage you to think critically about these examples, to ask questions, to delve deeper, because understanding these complexities is the first step towards making a difference. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Before we end this video, we have a small request. Your engagement is what fuels our work. If you enjoyed this journey and found it insightful, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps us to reach more people and share these important narratives. If you haven't already, do subscribe to our channel. Your subscription is a vote of confidence. It tells us that you believe in what we're doing and you want to see more. We're on a mission to spark curiosity and foster understanding, and every subscriber brings us closer to achieving that goal. Your support also helps us to continue producing quality content. We invest a lot of time and effort into researching, scripting, and producing these videos. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions show us that our work is valued and appreciated. It keeps us motivated to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep sharing. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Remember, every like, every share, every subscription makes a difference. You're not just viewers, you're part of our community, and we're grateful for each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.